Okay. How many people out there love mystery movies? Why do we do? Why do we love mystery movies? Because we want to understand the motive. Once you understand the motive, the whole story kind of makes sense, right? That's how people often approach God. When they hear about Jesus and the cross, the real question is what happened? It's why. What was God's motive behind all of this? I've heard atheists ask the question, if God is all-powerful and all-loving, why couldn't He just forgive people? Why did someone have to suffer and die? Why the cross at all? Well, God actually answers that question in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 5, where He says this, Paul's writing, he said, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Jesus Christ to Himself, according to the good pleasure of His will. That little phrase, to Himself, it's huge. It's Paul is telling us the direction of God's plan. God wasn't pushing people away or keeping them at a distance. His goal here was to bring people back into a relationship with Him. That's why the Bible describes salvation as a gift. God isn't trying to sell you something or shame you into obedience. He's saying, look, I love you, and here is how I'm proving it. Paul says that this was done, though, according to the good pleasure of His will. That little phrase, according to, matters because it always points to a specific standard. Think about it like this. If I were to take my family to McDonald's, you already understand the specific standard there, right? But if I take them to a steakhouse, the standard, hopefully, is completely different. It would be much higher. Paul is saying when it came to the cross, God acted according to His own standard. And here's the key. God's standard is perfect because God Himself is perfect. God does nothing beneath Himself. He doesn't do anything halfway. He does nothing that falls short of who He is. And everything God does is consistent with His nature, His character, and His perfection. So when Paul says that this plan was done according to the good pleasure of His will, he's basically saying that this plan fully met God's expectations. It aligned perfectly with who God is. Nothing about it was lacking and nothing needed to be improved or could have been done better. Simply put, in eternity past, when God was thinking of all the different ways that He could demonstrate to man His love for them, He said the highest thought, the pinnacle of the idea of the way I could demonstrate my love towards humanity is by sending my Son to die on a cross. Out of every possible way God could have dealt with sin, this one was perfect, and it was perfectly accomplished according to His purpose, and it was demonstrated by His love. It was God's greatest plan. And this plan that Paul describes to us, the greatest of all of God's plan, it's a gift. And it's available to anybody and everyone who will receive it. You don't earn a gift. You don't clean yourself up for a gift. You receive it by faith. And you know what? If you trust Jesus and the fact that He died on the cross and believe that He paid for your sin and mine, He rose again, and you turn to Him, God will bring you into a relationship with Him. The question is not whether God loves you or loves me. It's obvious. The cross already answered that question. The question is whether you will trust His motive and receive that gift freely. Will you receive that gift?